Hello and welcome. Today we are going to discuss something that lies at the very heart of managing your health, the daily, often stressful cycle of eating, testing your blood sugar, and watching that number climb. It's a pattern of vigilance that can feel relentless. You choose your meal carefully. You try to do everything right, and yet that post-meal spike can still appear, bringing with it a wave of questions and concerns about the future. If you've ever felt a sense of frustration or even a little bit of defeat when you see that number climb after a meal you thought was healthy, I want you to know that is an incredibly common and understandable experience. The emotional strain of managing a condition like diabetes is significant, and those feelings are valid. But what if the key to blunting that spike wasn't about taking more food away from your plate? What if it wasn't about more restriction? What if the secret was about adding one simple thing, or even just changing the order in which you eat the foods you already enjoy? One of the nation's top endocrinologists, doctors who specialize in hormones like insulin, has built a career on a principle that answers this very question. And today, we are going to explore it together. For decades, the primary advice for blood sugar control has focused almost entirely on what we eat and how much we eat. Counting carbohydrates, limiting sugar, choosing the right foods, these are all important pieces of the puzzle. But they are not the whole story. A leading endocrinologist I work with often says that his patients see the biggest breakthroughs when they stop focusing only on the what and start mastering the when and in what order. And I understand, hearing this might feel a bit like the rules of the game have just changed, especially if you have spent years meticulously tracking every gram of carbohydrate. It's perfectly okay to feel that way. But what I want you to remember is that this isn't about discarding what you know. Let me share an illustrative story from this expert's clinical practice. Consider a patient, we'll call him Robert, a 72-year-old who was doing everything by the book. He would eat a healthy, balanced dinner of grilled chicken, a small baked potato, and a large, beautiful salad with a light vinaigrette. Yet, his blood sugar would consistently spike higher than he and his doctor wanted. The frustration was building. The endocrinologist suggested a single, simple change. He didn't ask Robert to alter a single ingredient on his plate. He only asked him to change the order in which he ate them. So Robert began eating his salad first, then his chicken, and saved the baked potato for the very end of the meal. The result was astonishing. His post-meal glucose spike was reduced by nearly 30%. Same food, same portion sizes, dramatically different outcome. And Robert's case isn't an outlier. This endocrinologist observes this pattern constantly. He even sees it with patients who are just beginning to show signs of insulin resistance. They are told to eat healthy, but a seemingly innocent choice can be deceptive. For example, many people believe a plain bagel is a healthier breakfast than a glazed donut. But from a blood sugar perspective, that is often incorrect. The dense, starchy carbohydrates in a typical bagel, when eaten first thing on an empty stomach, can cause blood sugar to soar, sometimes even higher than a sugary donut would. The issue isn't just the food itself, but the massive load of carbohydrates hitting your system all at once without a buffer. This is the foundational insight. The sequence in which you eat your food can be just as important as the food itself. So, how do we begin to put this principle of structure over restriction into practice? The first tool, confirmed by numerous clinical studies, is something you likely already have in your pantry: vinegar. The power of vinegar lies in its active component, acetic acid. According to a body of research published in respected journals like the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition and Diabetes Care, when you consume a small amount of vinegar, before or during a carbohydrate-rich meal, the acetic acid goes to work in two key ways. First, it can help slow down gastric emptying. That's the rate at which food leaves your stomach and its sugars are absorbed into your bloodstream. A slower, more controlled release of food means a slower, more controlled rise in blood sugar. Second, and perhaps more importantly, studies suggest it helps your muscles take up glucose from the bloodstream more effectively. It essentially makes your body's cells more receptive to the insulin you produce, helping to clear sugar from the blood more efficiently. So how do you use this? The application can be remarkably simple. The most direct method is to mix 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinegar in a small glass of water and drink it a few minutes before you begin your meal. And the type of vinegar doesn't seem to matter as much as the presence of acetic acid. Apple cider vinegar, red wine vinegar, or simple white distilled vinegar have all been shown to be effective. Now, I know that for some, the idea of drinking diluted vinegar might seem unappealing, and that's perfectly fine, because there is an even easier and perhaps more enjoyable way to incorporate it. You can simply start your meal with a salad dressed in a vinegar-based vinaigrette. One compelling study had participants eat a slice of white bread, a food known to spike blood sugar. When they ate a salad with a vinegar dressing before the bread, their post-meal blood sugar response was significantly blunted compared to when they ate the bread alone. But here is a common mistake to avoid, a critical point an endocrinologist would emphasize. The benefit comes from the acid. Some products are sold as neutralized vinegar, where the acidity has been buffered, often with a salt like sodium acetate. Scientific research has been clear on this. These neutralized forms do not have the same blood sugar blunting effect. You need the acidity for the mechanism to work, so stick to regular unneutralized vinegar. I know, the idea of adding vinegar as a health tool might seem a little strange at first, but I encourage you to think of it not as a medicine, but as a traditional food that science is now beginning to fully understand. It is a small, simple step that can make a surprisingly large difference. Give it a try with one meal and just observe what happens. The second evidence-based strategy builds directly on the first. If vinegar acts as a pre-meal primer, then this next step is the buffer. It's the principle of fiber first. This is where the endocrinologist's advice becomes incredibly practical and easy to implement. Before you touch the starchy or sugary carbohydrates on your plate, the bread, the rice, the pasta, the potatoes, you first eat the non-starchy vegetables. The soluble fiber found in foods like broccoli, leafy greens, asparagus, bell peppers, or green beans acts like a sponge in your digestive system. It dissolves in water to form a gel-like substance that physically slows down the absorption of the sugars from the carbohydrates that you eat later in the meal. Instead of a rapid flood of glucose into your bloodstream, you get a gentle, more manageable stream. Now, a common question that arises right here is, this sounds easy when my food is separate on a plate, like chicken, broccoli, and rice. But what about mixed dishes like a stew, a casserole, or a pasta dish where everything is combined? This is an excellent practical question, and the principle still applies beautifully. The expert advice in this situation is to have a starter of pure fiber. This means you begin the meal with a small side salad or a bowl of clear, broth-based vegetable soup, or even just a handful of raw vegetables like celery sticks, cucumber slices, or cherry tomatoes before you begin the main mixed dish. By doing this, you are essentially preloading your digestive system with that protective fiber buffer, preparing it for the carbohydrates that are to come. And let's use this moment to address a very real-world situation with compassion. The restaurant breadbasket. It often arrives at the table when you are at your hungriest, and the temptation to dive right in is immense. We've all been there. And I want to be very clear. It is not a failure of willpower to find that difficult. It's a normal human response. The fiber-first strategy gives you a concrete plan for this exact scenario. When you sit down, order a side salad or a vegetable-based appetizer like grilled asparagus, and politely ask the server to bring it out before the breadbasket. By eating the fiber first, you satisfy that initial hunger and create the buffer. You are not fighting the temptation with willpower alone. Let's take a strategic pause here and see how these powerful pieces fit together. We started with the frustrating and common problem of the post-meal blood sugar spike. The first strategy we discussed was using vinegar as a primer to prepare your body's cells to receive glucose more efficiently. The second strategy was to use fiber-rich vegetables first as a buffer to slow down how quickly that glucose arrives. It is so important to see how these are not just two separate tips, but a system. They work together synergistically. The vinegar helps your muscles become more receptive to the incoming sugar, while the fiber-first approach ensures that the sugar arrives more slowly and steadily. One prepares the destination, while the other manages the delivery. This is the very foundation of the endocrinologist's approach to giving patients back a sense of control without demanding extreme restrictions. And by staying with me this far, you have already learned more about the mechanics of blood sugar control than most people ever will. You are taking a powerful step toward truly understanding your own body, and that is something to be genuinely proud of. But what if there was a way to make this system even more powerful? What if by eating a specific type of food before the fiber, you could trigger your body's own internal hormone system to help you manage blood sugar even more effectively? This is where the science gets truly exciting, and it is the key to unlocking the most profound and lasting results. It's the final piece of the puzzle that brings everything together. The deeper mechanism we're about to discuss involves a remarkable hormone called GLP-1, which stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. In the world of endocrinology, there is an immense focus on this hormone, and for good reason. It is one of your body's most powerful natural tools for managing blood sugar. In fact, some of the most modern and effective diabetes medications are designed specifically to mimic or enhance the action of this very hormone. Here is what GLP-1 does in your body. Explained simply. When it is released from your gut, it sends out a series of signals. It tells your pancreas to secrete the right amount of insulin in response to the food you've eaten. It tells your liver to stop producing its own sugar, which you don't need after a meal. And much like fiber, it helps to slow down gastric emptying, which contributes to a powerful feeling of fullness and satisfaction. It is like having your own internal diabetes manager on call. So what is the dietary key to releasing this powerful hormone? The science is clear. Eating protein and healthy fats before you eat carbohydrates. When protein and fat enter your small intestine ahead of carbohydrates, they trigger a robust release of GLP-1, setting up this entire beneficial cascade before the bulk of the sugar from your meal even begins to be absorbed. So what does this look like in practice? It could be as simple as eating a small handful of nuts, like almonds or walnuts, or a few cubes of cheese about 15 to 30 minutes before your meal. It could mean eating the chicken, fish, or tofu on your plate before you eat the potato or rice. Clinical studies have specifically investigated what they call a preload of protein, giving participants a small whey protein drink or even a simple combination of a boiled egg and some Parmesan cheese before a carbohydrate meal. The results are consistently remarkable in their ability to blunt the subsequent glucose spike. Now, when you start applying this, eating your protein and fat first, I want you to pay attention to something beyond just your glucose meter. Pay attention to your body. One of the very first things you are likely to notice is a greater, more profound sense of satiety. You might feel full sooner during the meal, and you will likely stay full for longer afterward. You may find that those nagging cravings for snacks between meals begin to diminish. This is not just in your head. At the beginning of our time together, I promised you a simple, unifying principle from a leading endocrinologist that could fundamentally change your relationship with food and your blood sugar. We have now explored all the individual pieces: the vinegar primer to enhance glucose uptake, the fiber buffer to slow down absorption, and the protein and fat hormonal trigger to activate your body's own management system with GLP-1. All of these evidence-based strategies point to one single elegant principle. It is not a specific food you must eat or avoid. It is an order. The unifying principle is simply this: carbs last. Think about how this simplifies everything. When you adopt carbs last as your guiding principle for meals, all the other strategies begin to fall into place almost automatically. You naturally start your meal with a vinaigrette-dressed salad, checking the boxes for both vinegar and fiber. You then move on to your main course of protein and healthy fats, like salmon with avocado, which triggers that crucial GLP-1 release. And only then, at the end of the meal, do you enjoy the starchy or sweeter carbohydrates, the roll, the rice, a baked sweet potato, or the piece of fruit for dessert. You are no longer fighting your body's biology. So how do you put this into practice starting with your very next meal? Let's distill everything we've discussed into a simple, clear, clinical action plan. Step 1. The appetizer. Begin your meal with fiber, ideally paired with vinegar. This can be a small side salad with a vinaigrette dressing. It could be some raw vegetables like carrots and celery sticks. Or it could be a simple, broth-based vegetable soup. Step 2. The main event. Next, eat your protein and healthy fat sources. This is your chicken, your fish, your steak, your tofu, your eggs. It's the avocado, the nuts, the olive oil. Focus on these foods after your fiber starter. Step 3. The finale. Finish your meal with your starchy carbohydrates and any sugars. This is when you eat the bread, the rice, the pasta, the potatoes, or the fruit. They come last. Now I want to say something very important. This is not about perfection. It is about progress. Will there be meals where this exact order isn't possible, like at a family gathering or with a mixed dish? Of course. Will there be days you forget or simply choose not to? Absolutely. And that is perfectly okay. Please be gentle with yourself. Every single meal is a new opportunity to try again. This journey of health is not a straight line, and a single meal does not define your success. The goal is consistent, gentle effort, not flawless execution. You are not alone in this, and every small step you take in this direction is a victory for your health. Thank you for investing this time in your health today. It has been a true privilege to share this information with you. Now, I would love to build a community of shared experience right here. So, in the comments below, I invite you to share your story. But please, don't just share your numbers. I'd like you to share your feelings. After trying this carbs last approach, what was the biggest surprise for you? Did you feel more in control? Did you notice a change in your energy levels or your hunger? Sharing our experiences is how we learn from and support one another on this journey. Remember, knowledge is power, and you are more powerful in managing your health than you may think. Be well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you found this information valuable, please consider liking this video, sharing it with a friend or family member it might help, and subscribing to the channel for more evidence-based strategies to support your health.